Okay, well, let's do this. 5:05 p.m. Central Standard Time in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And this is a webinar for buyers. So my name, firstly, is Ty Mitchell. It's so nice to meet you, and I just wanted to thank you for viewing this. This is going to be your masterclass so that you can be uber informed as a real estate buyer. So simply put, when you hire me for the transaction, I'm here to advise you. Okay, all along the way. This is the biggest purchase of your lifetime, and I am here for you for the entire process. All right, my goal is to make you feel as informed as possible throughout the buying process so that you're never left wondering what's next. My job as your buyer representative is to help you find real estate, buy it for the best price possible, on your terms, and on your timeline. And also protecting you and your potential investment with my expertise and my skill set. So as your realtor, I am held to a strict code of ethics and provide you with transparency during the process of securing your investment. Countless hours of preparation, education, and in practice negotiating have helped me bring well over 120 families home in just the last 3 years. So why should you care what I have to say? I mean, it's fair. I live real estate. This is not a job for me. This is not a hobby. This is my passion. Don't just take my word for it. There are countless testimonials from past clients that I invite you to go check out. So this is a longer form video for you to digest. And if you follow me on my social media feeds at TySellsWPG on Instagram or TikTok, you will have seen the condensed version of a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. I've made mini videos and YouTube shorts about almost every single one of these, but I wanted to put something together in long form so that you can go back and rewatch, potentially share with your friends and colleagues who are looking for sound real estate advice when purchasing real estate. So ultimately, this is the masterclass of being an informed buyer. So let's get right to it. Where do you even get started in the process? In this video today, we will cover off how and where to get started and with who. We're also going to break down the buying process from the required documents you're going to need, how and when we look at houses, the offer to purchase and closing procedures. And you have my assurance here, this is going to be easy to digest. I'm going to try and keep it light. You can pause, you can take breaks to make notes, totally cool. All right. You have decided to buy real estate. Let me say that again. You have decided to buy real estate. So congratulations. It's super exciting to be able to take this huge step towards changing your family's wealth bloodline. Real estate is the single biggest way that you can get ahead in a world that is getting increasingly costly. Now, it is not cheap to buy real estate, but when you think of your family's need for housing, you can certainly see the value in owning versus paying a landlord or a property management company every month to live. You have made the decision to pay yourself. Some famous quotes here. Don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And this is so funny, very true. I have never had anybody come to me and say, man, I'm so glad I didn't buy real estate before this boom. This is the reality. There is no crystal ball, but historically, houses go up in value over time. The longer you hold it, the better the return. Quote number 2 from Mark Twain, buy land. They're not making it anymore. And I mean, he's right. Even back then, desirable undeveloped land, there is not much of that left. And the third quote that I wanted to share with you, 90% of all millionaires become so through owning real estate. More money has been made in real estate than in all industrial investments combined. The wise young wage earner of today invests his money in real estate. That was from Andrew Carnegie a long, long time ago. Andrew Carnegie, by the way, is a billionaire industrialist. He might have owned a couple plots of land over the years. So the first thing to touch on is, how are you going to pay for this home? Well, you need a job, or at the very least be independently wealthy. But most lenders will want to see a proof of income. You will in all likelihood, be needing a mortgage here. So a mortgage, if you're unfamiliar, a mortgage is an agreement between you and a lender that gives the lender the right to take your property if you fail to repay the money that you've borrowed plus interest. Giving you a large sum of money has some risk to it, but there are some factors that will ensure that you don't bite off more than you can chew as far as affordability goes. If you make $100,000 a year but don't have a ton of assets, the lenders probably aren't going to immediately fork over $1 million to you, but they might give you enough to buy a home and give you some skin in the game. And really, that's all you need when you start. Buying the first home is fundamental in building this generational wealth. This is how people level up in life but don't change jobs or inherit a bunch of money. A hypothetical situation for you. If you purchased your first home for $300,000, you lived in it for 5 years, you now owe $200,000, right? And the house has appreciated in value over that time to $500,000, we'll call it. Now you have $300,000 of equity, skin in the game to go make your next move. And, 20% of $1 million is about $200,000. And guess who might be willing to take you on for $1 million mortgage? Again, that's a scenario we are going to dive much more into equity shortly. But how do the lenders decide if you're even a good candidate? Besides your credit score and the size of your down payment, mortgage lenders will also consider your income and employment status, your debt to income ratio, and your assets and liabilities. Basically, do you have enough money coming in to cover the mortgage and your bills? They're also going to look at what you have as collateral and payment history on your bills. So once we connect, first thing I'm going to do is put you in touch with several of my mortgage contacts, or if you have a bank that you deal with exclusively, see if they can give you some kind of preferred rate. Getting multiple opinions and options will be the key to finding the best rate for you. Sometimes mortgage lenders will actually compete for your business, especially right now. Rates at the time of recording this are higher than in years previous. But in 2024, the conversation has been that we should see some stabilization of rates, with the Bank of Canada having paused in November 2023 and December 2023. At the time of recording this, the Bank of Canada's rate is at 5. Now, this is solely market speculation, and the Bank of Canada has one more rate announcement. There is one more coming up in January. So we're done in 2023. Going forward into 2024, we'll see what the new year brings. Okay, so there is a comment that I see circulating online quite a bit. It gets put out there by agents and mortgage lenders, etc., saying, marry the house but date the rate. So let me explain this to you. The meaning behind that. Rates will change, but if you find a house that you love with payments that you can afford, the rates aren't as critical. With that being said, you're making your own financial decisions here. I would never tell you to buy a home that you can't afford, and certainly run the other direction if you have somebody advising you to. That's just a general rule of thumb. Don't go beyond your means. Now, the things you need to get together for a potential lender. This is important. Documentation that you're going to have required here would be notice of assessment from the last 2 years, T4 statements for that same time period, a list of investments and holdings, government ID, employment letter, and obviously each lender is going to be a little bit different, but ask your lender, they're going to send you a list that's going to get you started. Okay. So there are lots of different incentives that you should be finding out from this lender as well. First-time home buyer program. Are you eligible for this? Manitoba Métis Federation offers a first-time home purchase program, FTHPP. Without getting too bogged down of a shopping list of credits, reach out to me directly after this, and I'll send you an entire breakdown of that. Okay, so once you've found the mortgage broker or lender that is going to offer you the best terms and conditions, you will have what is called the pre-approval. Now, the pre-approval is great. I'm sure if you're already working with an agent, they've probably asked you if you're pre-approved. And some agents may actually ask you if you're pre-approved before taking you around to houses, for the simple reason, time wasting, right? Before you have pre-approval, you aren't actually able to purchase. No money, no house. Sure, the lending can be arranged after you have found your dream home, but how do you know that you're going to be able to afford it? And could this whole disaster have been avoided with a pre-approval and people's lives not being put in limbo and deals in jeopardy? It's very simple. Pre-approval just means that you are ready to buy. This is a big decision. And if you want to do it the right way, do it guided by a professional. I can't stress that enough. If a lender or a broker gives you an uneasy feeling that they haven't been forthcoming with you, just bail. There is way too much at stake here to deal with hacks. They're out there. Try and get a referral from a friend, or if you really don't know where to get started, just reach out to me. I'm here to be a valuable resource for you. Okay. So as this is unraveling here, the pre-approval is helping you set your budget to go house shopping. This is fun. So while you may not be comfortable going to your max budget, like I say, work within the parameters you're comfortable with. That is the main thing here. Nothing worse than being house poor. Like, stick within the budget you have set forth. That is a pro tip. Okay. You've got the pre-approval in place. Now what? So by this point of our relationship, we will already have had a couple documents signed up. This is going to happen pretty much right away. Once we decide that we're going to do business together, I'm going to send you something called the buyer service agreement. So this is basic and it's mandatory. It's a form that outlines the services that your representative, any representative, will provide. Any agent you're speaking to should be mentioning this document and prepare you to sign it. If they're not, again, be leery. The items outlined on the buyer service agreement, very simple and straightforward. Finding real estate for the person, showing or making representations about the real estate, advising on the appropriate price for the real estate, negotiating the price or other terms of a trade in real estate, presenting offers to purchase or sell, respecting a trade in real estate, and receiving deposit money paid in respect of the real estate. So basically every element of the transaction that your agent is going to touch or advise you on, it's all declared here. It's all laid out. It keeps everybody accountable and gives the framework for what to expect, especially if it's your first time buying. So buyer service agreements, they can be signed up with multiple agents too, although most agents will want you to work exclusively with them. And there's also a form that covers that, but I generally just leave the decision up to you. I'm confident that my buyers have a great experience and that experience is going to be seamless with my group of agents. You're not going to need to explore any other options. Okay. And we welcome you too, but we know that you're going to come back ultimately. So now we've signed up the buyer service agreement and we've set it for some time in the future, right? This thing is going to expire at some point. Let's make it for down the road because this may take some time to find you the right home. Now, I usually set them for a year in the future. That way, even if I find you a home within that year and you start asking me more real estate advice or, you want to transact again during that time period, then we just don't have to re-sign the service agreement. But it's also super easy to do if you just want one exclusive transaction by transaction. We can do that too. Again, just making the process as easy for you as possible. Now, next up is the working with a realtor brochure. This basically outlines the duties your agent is sworn to, different types of agency relationships. So let's touch on those. The following list outlines some of their duties arising out of an agent-client relationship in a typical real estate transaction. So there is the loyalty to serve your best interests ahead of anyone else's. You see me making a face there. These all should go without saying, but there is a form that states this again, that as your representative, we have the loyalty to serve your best interests ahead of anyone else's. And that includes my own or any other agent's own. And this goes at all times, that we have to exercise good faith and to disclose all the facts and information that we are aware of that may influence your decision. So if there's something about the house that the agent knows, or maybe the seller has told the agent and the agent has some understanding that there may be smoke where there's fire, if you will, or fire where there's smoke, whatever that old saying is. If there's reason for concern, the agent should be bringing these to you. Transparency is very, very key, and loyalty to serve. Okay, obedience to follow all your lawful instructions. If you're telling us to do something, that could be writing an offer that maybe we don't necessarily agree with and the sellers aren't going to like, but really, at the end of the day, we have a duty to have obedience to follow all your lawful instructions. Discretion to keep confidential your private circumstances, motivations, confidences, and anytime you're sharing information about that, the why you're moving, the reasoning for that, ultimately even who you are until we get down to the offer to purchase, we can keep that confidentiality. We also owe you the competence to exercise reasonable care and skill in providing agreed upon services, as we've outlined in the buyer service agreement, as well as accounting of all monies, deposits, and other property entrusted to them or to me, to us as agents. Okay. So that is the first part of the working with a realtor brochure. That just outlines the duties. Okay. The agent is sworn to these different types of agency relationships, such as single agency being the most common kind of representation. This is where your agent and their brokerage that's representing you in the transaction here. So the seller will be represented by another brokerage and agent. This is like me and you as a buyer, and the seller has another brokerage representing them, different teams here. That's like a sports analogy that I can use for this. I'm representing you in this transaction, and they are being represented and guided by their own party here. But then we enter sometimes what's called limited joint representation. So this is when the listing brokerage and the selling brokerage are the same. It could also happen that the buyer agent is repping the seller too. Many anecdotes about this limited joint representation. So I'm representing you as the buyer, and the seller, potentially I'm representing them as well. Like you've come to us on a sign call. And so now we've just decided that I'm going to represent both parties. We just enter into an agreement at that point, just stating that we are both acknowledging this. Okay. So it does happen sometimes where the listing brokerage will just be representing on the other side. I've had it happen many times where I'll be on the listing side and somebody from my brokerage, Real Broker, writes an offer. Therefore, we have to fill out a form that acknowledges that we are entering into limited joint representation. Okay, so the agent in the middle of the transaction during limited joint will do their best to bring the deal together on terms and conditions that work for both parties. Okay, so again, while it's very tough to find that middle ground, that agent has to do their best. I know in some cases where there is the potential for conflict of interest, limited joint representation, the listing agent may hand off the buyer to one of their colleagues. Okay, so that is something that happens as well. Now, the other thing is no representation, which if you've made it this far, I'm speculating that you want representation. Yes, of course, you can use the Realtor app and go try and find your own home, but that's like the equivalent of diagnosing yourself on WebMD and then performing the surgery on yourself. I mean, would you do that? Probably not. You want to protect yourself in negotiations with the proper paperwork workflow, just to make sure that the transaction goes as smoothly as it possibly can. Now, as your representative, it's my job to look after all the documentation and paperwork, just to make sure that everything goes through smoothly and in a timely fashion. Okay, so we can all agree that moving things along is very key to everybody here. And if you don't have representation, you don't necessarily know all of the processes that are in place. Now, to recap here, we are getting your pre-approval in place before starting the search, and the documents that we will be signing up early on in our working relationship that are the buyer service agreement that should be brought up to you once you decide to engage with an agent. The working with a realtor brochure, it can be broker specific, but certainly good information for you to understand the process. And that's the key. One of the things that I find very important is explaining the process is so valuable, because you may not have done this before, especially if you're a first-time buyer. I really want to break this down for you so that the next time you go to transact, or when one of your friends comes along and says, oh, hey, what was that process like? You can say handily and with confidence, I understand the process so much better now. My agent, Ty Mitchell, explained everything to me and broke it down for me, handed me a buyer's guide. It was very easy and straightforward. There was this great webinar that I went to. I was able to go back and check in on the process. So ultimately, that's why I'm doing this right now. And I hope you're seeing the value in it tonight. So where and how are we going to find our dream home? Well, first up, let's get a list together of your wants and your needs. Some very key questions that we need to get answered here right away. So what neighborhood do you want to live in? Do you need schools nearby? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? Do you even know how many square feet you think you need? Right? An 1,100 square foot bungalow with 3 bedrooms, or do you need an 1,800 square foot 2-story? Right? So what style of home do you need or want or prefer? Garage, fenced yard. Are these things that you could potentially build after buying if you got the house for a good price? If you get a house with no garage, conceivably, lower price, potentially down the road, add value, build that garage, right? So we can find your new home on the MLS. I'm sure that even if you have a little interest in real estate, either on social media you've used to potentially find some properties, or you've looked at MLS, the multiple listing service, and that could be on an app, a website, whatever, but MLS is going to be the most common way of searching. So the MLS is a database of listings that sellers have access to market their homes. Realtor app, like I say, great tool, but it's just one tool. The best way to gather listings in one place is ultimately going to be the search that your agent sets up. So I like to set up a matrix search. Easy for me to say. The Keystone Matrix search is essentially going to send you all of the homes with that are specifically targeted to your search. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you all those questions, your wants, your needs, and based on that information, I'm going to try and send you a hyper-specific search that is targeted, and it's going to come into your inbox either daily. That could be in the morning. It could be as these places come on the market if you're a really active buyer, or this could be in the evening, or even just once a week or once a month. So within the parameters of the search, these homes are going to come directly to your inbox as soon as they hit the market. And then you can favorite them, you can maybe them, you can throw them in the recycling bin if they're just junk. And it just helps me figure out and pinpoint exactly what you're going to want in a home. As you're hitting like, I'm like, okay, well, this person wants X in a home, right? So that makes more sense to me. Now I know that I can narrow that search and ultimately make this process more seamless. We don't have to waste time driving around and potentially looking at houses that you're just not going to like. So once I know what you like, then I can dial it in, and then we can only go look at houses specifically like that. And again, let's just leave that as a general thumb rule. Do you know, like, it is totally okay that if you think you want to be in a neighborhood and then realize after the search that, you know what, maybe we should expand this. There's not enough in our budget and our price point in this area. Maybe we want to go a little bit further into another neighborhood where we can get more house or a nicer home that has more fixtures and appointments, right? So again, this is very flexible and can be changed anytime. But I want to say that we have something that is very, very unique, and it's the off-market and exclusive listings. Okay, so off-market possibilities are something called pocket listings. If you've ever heard that term, that's like a real estate term. But basically what happens is somebody who is considering selling or says, if you get me X amount of dollars, I would consider selling. So when I get that information from somebody, I will take that to some people that I know, investors or somebody, a family who's looking for a home. And I will say, hey, I've got the possibility of an off-market listing in X neighborhood for X amount of dollars, right? I'm trying to find houses that aren't even on MLS that are going to have little to no competition because basically nobody's really going to know about them outside of a few agents who are really doing their due diligence and doing their digging every week. So finding houses off market is a total possibility. Now, the process doesn't change for you. It's just a property that, you know, basically sellers have decided not to maximize the exposure on, and they likely don't want a lot of people touring their home. All different price points again, but high price points and custom homes, truly custom homes. Some people don't want the general public walking through. They want to make sure that, you know, and even for photos, right? There could be some very expensive pieces of artwork that are on the wall that they just don't want shown on the MLS. Again, not getting the most exposure, but hey, it's totally up to the seller at the end of the day. So great opportunities can be found off market. In fact, my biggest sale, $4.15 million, was in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it was an off market deal. $4.15 million deal, and that house never hit the MLS. In fact, I never even took photos of the home. I can share that story with you at another time. Once I have a buyer, okay, with something specific in mind, once a buyer comes to me, once you come to me, say, Ty, I know exactly what I want. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to exercise all the options here and connections within my network, which is huge. Okay, over 90 agents in my brokerage alone, all the connections there that are going to help you with this search. Now, I'm aiming to find you a place on your terms and on your timeline. So if there's a time crunch, just know that I will leave no stone unturned. If you need something next week, I will go door knocking and I will take somebody a nice basket of cookies and say, I've got this great client moving here. They need to close on a place in a week. Sorry for the interruption, but please take these cookies if you won't consider selling your house as a token of our appreciation. But just know that I owe it to you. My duty is, if you are not here, especially if you're an out-of-province buyer, out-of-town buyer, I am in market here to do the digging for you. You need to know that you can trust your agent that is here to do everything to make this right for you and find you the right home. Now, like I say, I've gone door to door asking if people will consider selling. I do have some success with that. Ultimately, I have gone to door knocking scenarios and got listings out of it because I've formed a quick bond with people over a very short period of time. And they said, hey, listen, while we don't want to sell off market, would you consider putting our house on the market to sell? So it's definitely something to do that shows that we're going the extra mile on foot if we have to, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, if you have a limited budget, managing your wants and your needs will be key. You may get some of the things that you want, but you may not get everything that you wanted. That's just a harsh reality. A lot of first-time buyers I work with are so keen to get into the market, but a particular home didn't check every single box. Now it should give you some motivation to do improvements and improve the value of that home so that when you call me to sell it in a few years, you've built up all this great equity and sweat equity too. Buying a home that isn't perfect can be a very good opportunity for you. Just get some professionals on site, or if you have some friends that are handy, family members, come over and help me out and do a project or two. I mean, usually if it's your first home, somebody's probably going to be willing to throw you a hand, maybe for a case of beer and some pizza or something. But it's fun. It really is. It can be, and it's part of home ownership. The maintenance of it all, which we'll touch on in future videos and future podcasts. But really, home ownership, that sense of pride that you get when you get the keys to that home, I assure you, if you've not gone through the process yet, something comes over you. I remember my first home so well, getting the keys and it feeling surreal and being immediately drawn to how hideous the paint was on the walls, and immediately went to the local Home Depot and grabbed some paint and came home and spent 4 hours my first Saturday painting up, the entire dining room. And it was just something that my wife and I did. And it's an experience and a memory that we'll always have. And the more that you make in this home, the more special it's going to be to you, because it really is a journey. The first house you buy is generally not the one that you're going to spend your whole life in. This is just fact of the matter. This comes back to finding a house that you can afford. You can always level up once you have more savings and once you build up that equity. So I'm going to touch on equity here because I'm sure you're wondering, hey, Ty, we're this far into it. And you've mentioned equity a couple times and we still haven't got there yet. So let's get to that. And equity, home equity, is basically the difference between the value of your home and how much you owe on your mortgage. Every payment you're making is chipping away at the principal of your loan. Over time, your home goes up in value through what's called appreciation. Right? So when it's time to sell, your equity is the difference between what we sell your home for and what you still owe on it. For example, if your home is worth $250,000 and you owe $150,000 on your mortgage, you have $100,000 of equity, home equity. The money that you have put into your home can be available to you if you need it for an emergency. So the ability to refinance your home down the road is a possibility. I will say that I want you to speak to your mortgage professional before and after you do anything to refinance your home. Speak to them about the advantages, benefits, ramifications, or penalties involved. Sometimes it just may not be worth it, as the rates have increased over the last few years. If you qualified for a mortgage at 1.6%, even doing what's called a blended mortgage to where we're at right now, it's still going to be a very expensive draw of money for you. So you want to make sure that you really need that cash, right? Try and see if there are maybe some other ways to do it. That's why I say contact the person that is doing your mortgage to get this in great detail. Okay. Just make sure, always be making sure, following up and checking with your professionals. There's a reason why you hired them after all. So now you understand equity and the value and the importance of entering the market and growing your equity. Right? Now you also understand the pre-approval process. So this is good. We've got the documentation, right? We've got the forms that you need, the pre-approval process, and the importance of entering the market, equity, value. So now it's the fun part, all right? Whether we're going to look at one house or 100 houses, we will find you the right one. The average timeline of house shopping from meeting to closing is usually 2 to 3 months, give or take, sometimes quicker, sometimes longer, generally not quicker though. We will be spending a lot of time together during our time. This is one of those relationships that we're going to form. Well, first you're going to get to know me, then you're going to get to like me, and then you're going to get to trust me. Once we get to that trust, we're going to spend that time together and we are going to make the most of our time. Every time we're communicating, let's make the most of it. Let's keep the line of communication always open, but setting boundaries is important too. And when I onboard new buyers, I'm going to let you know that I'm always on my phone for a call. And, I don't keep my phone on silent other than when I'm recording webinars here and masterclasses and podcasts. But I'm usually on my phone till about 10:30, almost 11 o'clock at night. But 10:30 is when I'm trying to put it down for the night. The hours of operation for calls and texts is open between 7 a.m. and 10:30, we'll call it. Obviously, if we're in the middle of something or it's time sensitive, I'm going to tend to it, right? This is not a union shop, right? Once the clock strikes 10:30, I'm still on my phone for a couple of minutes here and there if it's time sensitive. But I'm not going to call you in the middle of the night to tell you about a new home that's coming on the market. You're probably not going to do the same, but let's just make it clear up front and have that line of communication open, between 7 a.m. and 10:30. And if you want smaller window for communication, that's totally fine too. Lots of things can wait until tomorrow morning. I will say this, that we are buying a home here. While it is a very, very important and major life decision, financial commitment, know that this is not brain surgery. And yes, there are deadlines. There are firm timelines that we need to do our best to uphold. And we're going to be put up against some pressure on those deadlines. And there are going to be some calls that, may not be the happiest calls, right? There are times when we're going to have those tough chats. But just know at the end of the process and throughout the process, I have your best interest at heart, and I am going to bat for you. Once you sign up to work with me, I am in your corner. And I am a team player for many, many years, having played high-level sports and worked in a team environment. I am on your team throughout this, okay? So just know that. When we're looking at homes, let's carve out a plan. I like 24 to 48 hours in advance. Some situations vary. Sometimes we need 24 hours notice to let somebody know that we're coming into their home. Some sellers want that. Right? So let's try and work off of that. 24 hours minimum. Usually on 24 hours notice, we can flex the schedule to accommodate some showings. I'm always eager to show you homes. I love doing it. And I've got the time, I've got the team. We have people to look after you anytime you want to see a home. Okay. I've got a network of my team that has committed to getting you into the home. This is your terms, your timeline here. Okay. So when you want to look at a home, we will have somebody available for you. But with a busy schedule, sometimes we can't just change things around on 20 minutes notice or an hour's notice. So look, I know some days it gets hard to, plan it out. You don't know, something comes on the market and you're like, I got to get on and see this right away. If it's a home that is offers as received, which we will touch on shortly, we will get into that home on day one and get in there, because I know the importance of a home that is immediately taking offers. The importance of getting in there in a time-sensitive matter. It's key. I've got houses for my buyers on day one for the sole reason that we got into that house and got a chance to write an offer before anybody else even saw the property. Okay. So again, I'm going to send you a detailed map of our showings when we're going out to look at houses with the best routes possible to avoid traffic. I just want to make the most of our time together. Time is so valuable. I don't like wasting mine, and I really don't want to waste yours. So if it's driving around the city during rush hour, what have you, we're going to try and stay outside of peak hours. But if that's the only time you can see houses, we're going to take routes that go around traffic and construction as best we can, making the most of our time. Usually we want to look at multiple homes in a tour. It's also very effective, especially when comparing two homes side by side. It's good to do this stuff while it's fresh in your mind. And I want to encourage you, I get asked this a lot. Can I bring a friend or a family member along to get their opinion? Of course, yes, I'm certainly there to help you. And I want you to have another person to bounce things off of. Obviously, I'm the professional as far as the real estate side of things go, but I know that you have other professionals in your sphere of influence that can help you with this. In fact, I would love to meet them too. So I'm there to provide you with access to the home at any point, and point out any concerns that I have as well. Like I say, I'm not here to talk you out of buying these houses, but I'm not here to talk you into it either. I want you to feel that I've given you professional insight. When you go into that home, I'm pointing out things so that you can make an informed decision about this major investment. When you walk out of a home, is it a yes or is it a no? If it's a maybe, it's probably a no. That's just my experience. But if you have to think twice about it, this is a maybe. Now, the things that I'm looking for as a professional at a showing is the house square, level, and straight. Are there any major humps in the floor? Is there a wall that's clearly tilted and has some major cracking in it? I mean, you're going to see some of these things, but I just want to point them out so that it's very clear that this is a cause of, right? And or this is something that could be fixed very easily. Is this a situation of a maintenance issue? Right. So we want to look at the mechanical and appliances. We want to check the dates on those, the roof age as well. We should be able to tell looking at the roof if it's in good, fair, or bad condition. That's a great way to look at it. Really just, good, not so good, going to have to fix in a couple years, and long term, this needs to be replaced immediately. Basement foundation is huge. We're going to smell, right? Is that litter box or is that mold, right? Like we just want to know everything about the house so that we can make the most informed decision. Cracking in drywall, that can be signs of bigger issues. What is it? What are you up against if you make this purchase? Now, again, I'm not a professional home inspector, but I've been in thousands of homes and many, many home inspections, mixed with a background in building homes. I did the first 2 years of my carpentry apprenticeship when I was in my late teens, early 20s. So I framed houses, I did foundations, and I've done finishing. I've flipped homes as well and have done work on and built on my properties over the years as well. So I'm not a professional home inspector, but I certainly have an above average, very keen eye for things that are going to add up. And the ability to be able to price things out for you on the fly is where I'm bringing value to you as a buyer. I know that appliance is going to cost X. I know that getting a guy in to take that wall down and put an island in could cost this, but could also be as expensive as this. I'm going to give you a conservative pricing, pardon me, and I'm going to give you an extreme high pricing of what you might see online. I had somebody come to me recently and say, "Oh, I saw on Reddit that it costs $75,000 to build a garage." Pardon me. And I said, well, again, it may have cost one person $75,000 to build a garage, but on average, that is generally very high to build a standard garage, as these people were talking about, right? So again, you've had information from different sources. I want to provide you just with an arbitrary different source of information to help you just form your own opinions, right? It's like anything, right? You hear it from one side, you hear it from another. This person wants you to do this. This person's telling you to do this. You're stuck here wondering, right? So I just want to paint a very, very clear picture for you and just break it down as easy as possible. It's just going to make things go so much smoother in the long run. So if you want, I can break down the lifespan on items in the house and how much is left. Really, however you want to digest the information, that's how I'm going to provide it. Some people like a lot, some people don't care. This is a customized buying experience for you. Don't forget, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. So guess what? We've found you the house that you love. What's next? So we have been on the hunt and finally found you a home that you've decided works for your situation. It's got everything. And best thing about it, it's within your budget. So let's get as much information as we can from the seller here. All right, is there a property disclosure statement attached, or do we have to ask for this? Okay, property disclosure statement is the PDS, right? You'll hear me refer to it as that, is the series of questions regarding a home. The seller usually will have pre-filled this out, or we can ask for them to produce it and give them 24 or 48 hours to come up with this. If a home has been tenant occupied or the seller has never lived in the home, this information can be tougher to gather, but items laid out in the property disclosure statement would be things like water issues, foundation cracks, previous history of the home that we just wouldn't have been able to see, and only the homeowner would have known. So this includes unpermitted work, which may not be a deal breaker for you, but it's definitely worth getting a professional to check out the work that has been done and just make sure that everything is good and above board and done to code, even if it was done without permits. So the PDS will include items not working that are to stay with the home. Say there's an element on the stove burnt out or furnace not functioning. This is important to have going into a purchase. If you buy a home without realizing certain deficiencies, could end up costing you more money than you anticipated. And we don't want that. You're going to come back to me and say, hey, Ty, why didn't we know that this wasn't working or this didn't do this? So that's where we say, look, let's get the information up front, okay, to the best of our ability and what the seller is willing to offer. Now, are there any personal effects in the home that interest you at all? Depending on the seller's situation, sometimes a move or a downsize can actually lead to more value being added to your purchase. I write my offers to protect my buyers against defects. I like to include the seller is to guarantee that any mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and inclusions are in working order until 11:59 p.m. on possession day. I'm going to give you a reminder before possession to check everything out, and I'll get all your meter readings for you. But those are just some things that you want to do immediately once you get possession of the house. But I'm going to hand you a nice little package that is going to outline all of this for you step by step. And if you need to refer back to this webinar anytime, it's going to live online and on my website, tysellswpg.com. Now, this home that we're looking at, or this home that we found that you love, that you want to write an offer on, is it offers presented as received, or is there an offers date? I kind of touched on this already. Offers as received, or is it an offers date? And what's the difference? Offers as received means that the sellers are ready and willing to deal quickly. So we can write up the offer and send it over to that listing agent to present that day, potentially, right? If that seller is available, we will give them a certain amount of time, a prescribed amount, to get back to us with a response, okay? And then there is the offers date, which indicates that the seller is going to take all the offers in on the same day. So that is, maybe you've seen a listing on the MLS that says OTP, offers to purchase, and then a date. The offers to purchase date is kind of the hard line, if you will, for getting in all offers, giving everyone the same amount of time to look at that house. Generally speaking, these homes are priced a little conservatively, trying to get the action up, and then getting all those parties through, hopefully all writing offers on the same day. But offers as received, as has happened, offers as received can still mean that you end up in a competitive situation. The main difference between the two, not exclusively, because I'm going to tell you that we have run into multiple offer scenarios with offers presented as received, happened to me as recently as last night. The offers date generally forces potential buyers within that time that if they want to present an offer and do so, they have to do it by this date and time. Offers dates are designed to drive interest over a shorter window, creating excitement and demand, ultimately benefiting the seller if they receive multiple offers seeking that higher sale price. Now, as I say, as I'm recording this, we're still seeing offers dates with good houses in good areas, seeing good activity and good action. Houses with offers dates generally have the pricing, a little more on that conservative side for what the market would support. Right? Event pricing, if you will. I can talk about event pricing in the seller's webinar, and I encourage you to join me on that one if you are somebody who is looking to sell real estate in the near future. Some very, very good in-depth information here, as I'm doing peeling back the onion for you. So whether it's offers as received or an offers date, with any offer, the seller can do three things. The seller can accept it as written, they can decline the offer completely, or they can counter offer. So the counter offer functions as both a rejection of the initial offer to enter a contract, as well as the new offer that materially changes the terms of the original offer. Basically, the seller has other ideas on price and terms that work for them, at which point that's where I come in to negotiate the deal. All right, terms and conditions and the offer to purchase coming up. This is very important stuff. I break this down for all of my clients exactly like this every time they go to sign it, because it's a legally binding agreement. And so therefore we need it to be clear and easy to understand. All right. There is no doubt here that we want this to be very clear for you so that you know what you are signing. This is a legal document. I'll just reiterate that. So let's start at the top of the standard offer to purchase. At the top of page 1, you will see the names of both brokerages and their representatives. There's a portion there to be initialed by you, me, and the other parties, acknowledging who is representing who, as we talked about in the Working with a Realtor brochure. This is where limited joint representation would be initialed off on too. Okay, so let's go back to that section about the documents to be signed if you need to recap on limited joint representation. But we will most likely be entering into a single agency representation where I'm representing you and the seller is represented by somebody different. So you're going to see that right at the top, and we're going to get you to acknowledge it right on the offer to purchase. That's how important that limited joint representation disclosure is. So we're going to be making the offer out to the seller or a company name with their address for service, and yours will be below that. So any persons that are going to be on title to the home should be named at this time. However, a name can be added to title, but consult with your lawyer on any changes to title prior to or post possession. Again, if you wanted to put a nominee clause in there, this is something that we can talk about. If you decide that you want to purchase the home in a company or numbered company closer to possession date, you can nominate them with this nominee clause. But again, get in touch with me if you think that this is a situation that you may be up against, and I will be conveying this with you if you are in a situation of nominating somebody else to take possession of this home and be on title. But in all likelihood, it's going to be you and your partner on that title. So we're going to need your names and both of your addresses. If you're not currently living together, both your addresses will need to be on there. Okay. So we need to add the property address along with the legal description, just so there are no issues or confusion about which property you're buying. And then we start talking about the exclusions or inclusions in the next two parts. Now, this is where we got to cross-reference the listing to ensure that the items listed will be included with the sale. All right. Things like washer, dryer, fridge, stove, microwave, maybe. And then are there any items that are going to be excluded? Anything going to be taken out of that home? That's got to be declared there. Make sure that you have double-checked the inclusions. I cannot stress this enough. Too many horror stories. Go check my timeline on Instagram at TySellsWPG. I've posted a video there that basically outlines exactly why you need to double check this all the time. Okay. The terms of the deals here. Okay. Let's talk about this. The terms of the deal. The purchase price is what you're putting on your offer to purchase as your financial offering of what you would pay for the home. Deal by deal specific as far as strategies go for writing a fair offer that has a chance of being accepted. You never know what a seller's desperation level is. And if a house has been on the market for a while, could be a good opportunity to go in at a lower price. However, like we talk about, if it's an offers date with multiple offers, you're going to need some coaching on this if you really want that home, because there are some strategies in play, but very, very deal by deal, case by case specific. Okay. The following line below the offer to purchase price is the deposit. Now, the deposit is your financial showing of good faith that you are going to try and go through with this sale as best you can. All right. The deposit will have to be provided within 24 to 48 hours of acceptance of offer. Now, I also like to write this into the offer to purchase just for clarity. Okay. Give you a little bit of time to go to the bank and move some money around if you have to. But the deposit, generally speaking, how much? $5,000 is sufficient in a lot of cases, as that's a dollar figure that you wouldn't likely back away from. $10,000 is a very strong deposit. And obviously, as the purchase price goes up, or the length of possession is further out, sellers may ask for an increase in your deposit. The deposit gets held by the listing brokerage trust account, goes towards the purchase price of the home at closing time. And just a reminder here that the deposit comes out of your bank account as soon as it gets delivered to the listing brokerage or shortly thereafter. So you need to have this as liquid cash in your bank account. Now, with all that being said, if you aren't able to satisfy the conditions set forth, the deposit gets returned to you. The deposit is only in jeopardy once you've satisfied the conditions in your offer and then you decide to pull out of the deal, or you've gone past the time to pull out of the deal, right, with those conditions that you had in place. And then the seller, decides that they have been inconvenienced by this and could be entitled to that whole deposit. And again, we want to provide you with enough information leading up to this that you are not at risk. We are here to protect you, okay? I have had a couple of cases lately where deposits have been in jeopardy, and it has been a lot of work to try and get those deposits back. I don't want to see you lose money for no good reason ever, okay? Now, possession date. This is very important. We need to figure out what works for you, and has the seller told us already what they have in mind for a possession date? So possession dates can be flexible, and we try not to lose a deal over dates here, but sometimes, rarely, it happens where someone's selling, can't move out for a while, or there is a tenant in the property until a specified date. But we're going to know this, or most of this, before even preparing the offer. I have the conversation, having good relationships with other agents, always like to reach out and connect with them verbally and just, see where the situation is at as far as possession date goes. Now, we need to learn if this home has any liens against it, any encroachments. Is there an easement? Now, these are all things that the seller would have to disclose to us if the property wasn't in compliance with the current zoning, or if there were blurred property lines, right? I've had offers with an eaves trough actually hanging 1/4 of an inch over a property line, and it's been on an offer to purchase because it's registered against the title, right? So it does happen, especially in areas with older homes and smaller lots, 25-foot lots, old big houses, very close to property lines. They didn't have the same setbacks, or at least they weren't as enforced back in the early 1900s and 10s and 20s, right? Over 100 years ago. So we want to ask the seller for a site survey or certificate that could explain any of this. No guarantees here, but we just want to be as clear as we can that there isn't anything registered against the title. The lawyer is going to come in handy and pull this information again at a later date as well. So we will really know going into it if there are any liens that we can't dig up on the surface. So we can move on to the next section of the offer to purchase. Moving to page 2 of the offer to purchase, the seller is assuring you that to the best of their knowledge, the property is in compliance and all the fixtures, goods, and chattels, which are the inclusions, etc., are exempt from GST. Now, the conditions benefiting the buyer. This is you. This is where we ask for or acknowledge receiving the property disclosure statement. We're going to cross out the conditions here that don't apply, and all of those will need to be acknowledged with an initial. The financing condition is going to land here. Now, this is where we fill out the timeline to satisfy the financing. If the pre-approval is in place, this shouldn't need longer than 5 to 7 business days. Some mortgage lenders are faster than others. Big banks, credit unions, again, private lenders, friends, family. Let's talk about your financing long before we get to writing the offer to purchase, because you got to be pre-approved going into this. So the financing condition here shouldn't take longer than 5 business days because you were pre-approved, right? So do you want or do you need a home inspection? This is something that we will have to decide prior to writing the offer. Some homes show really well, but it's not a bad idea if you really want to put your mind at ease. Lots of first-time buyers like to see an inspection to help put any concerns to rest. The main point of an inspection, in my eyes, is not to blow up the deal, but rather to learn about the home and to find out if there are any maintenance or structural items that need to be fixed prior to you signing off on the deal. I've got several solid inspectors who will go in and give you an honest, impartial opinion on the home. Okay. So I notice here at the 55-minute mark, the lights have dimmed a little bit. So we'll keep moving here. We're talking about home inspections and conditions on page 2 of the offer to purchase. And are there any other conditions required? Some deals require lawyer's approval. If something's getting put over to a builder's contract, maybe there's an element that we need to touch on there in the contract. This is where we will put this, okay, on page 2. As we move forward towards the bottom here, all the legal jargon that explains that you will try to do your best to fulfill the obligations in this contract. And that will take us to page 3 of the Manitoba Standard Offer to Purchase, explaining all the promises and provisions, which include tax adjustments to the date of possession. And basically here, this is stating that you have entered a legally binding agreement. And with your signature, there are financial and legal recourse that you could find yourself in the middle of. Now, I have yet to have any of my clients get sued, and I want to keep it that way. So we protect you by staying on top of all timelines and deadlines here. So once we have the terms and conditions organized and the deadline for response, it's time to sign the offer and send it over. Will they accept it? Will they counter? It can be stressful and nerve-wracking waiting for that reply, but just know that I'm invested in this deal and I will give you the straight goods as soon as I hear. Okay, so other than the down payment and deposit, what else costs money? So let me start by saying you are not paying me for my professional services. Let me say that again. You, the buyer in Manitoba, do not pay me for my professional real estate services. That's not a line. Buyer agents in Manitoba get paid by the proceeds of the sale by the seller. As a buyer, you will, however, need to pay land transfer tax. This can be a cost that maybe you weren't expecting. Land transfer tax, basically is it's a sliding scale based off of the purchase price. All right, the land transfer tax. This is to get the title changed over to you. And once we get the final purchase price, we'll actually calculate and give you an estimate for your land transfer tax. There is a website, wowa.com, that you can go visit yourself and just type in a hypothetical purchase price. And that can help you be a more educated consumer and a more knowledgeable buyer even going into this, so that you can come to me and say, oh yeah, Ty, I already know what the land transfer tax is on this house and I can afford it, right? So lawyer fees, that's another cost. Lawyers are going to help you close the transaction. They're going to handle the title exchange. I've got a great referral network of lawyers that can help guide you to the finish line of the transaction. But definitely find somebody that handles real estate and almost exclusively, because lawyer fees can range from $700 up to $2,000, maybe even more, depending on the complexity of the deal and depending who the lawyer is. So once you're in this position, let's set you up with the best option to make this smooth. The lawyer's involvement starts once we have a contract in place. I will send the file over almost immediately to the lawyer's office once the files are conveyed by my broker. And they'll get to work on the due diligence of the property, title search, etc. The lawyer is going to invite you to their office to sign in wet ink in a few weeks before the transaction closes on possession day. So when you go to meet your lawyer, this is when you're going to pay for the house. Ultimately, you're going to bring a check or bank draft to the meeting. The lawyer is going to give you that amount prior to closing. And you're going to close that deal up with that check. The bank's going to give you a big check and you're not going to believe that you have that much money in your hand, and you're going to go hand it over to the lawyer and they are basically going to pay for this house for you. So all in, I like to tell people to budget for 2 to 3% of the purchase price to be safe. This is something to factor into the entire discussion about your budget. And it's easier to have the conversation up front than to get to closing week and realizing that you don't have enough money for the transaction. It's just going to end up costing you a lot more money to make that mistake. And you're opening yourself up to possible legal recourse. But we're not going to let that happen, because now after watching or listening to this, you are a more informed buyer. You're going to have your pre-approval in place, right? We're going to break down all of the steps within the contract for you so that you know what you're signing. You are an informed buyer. So on to satisfying the conditions. Now, if there's a home inspection required, let's do it ASAP. I'm going to send all the pertinent files out to your mortgage broker or lender and attach you to all the emails so that you have all the records for your files. You got to start building a little file, document packet here. Okay, so just, again, I'm going to email you everything. Make a folder on your desktop, house purchase 2024. And then if you put everything in there, it gets so easy to just reference back. So many times I ask people if they have documents from closing, especially condos, and people are always like, oh yeah, geez, I'll try and dig those out. Let me try and find those. I promise you, if you just organize it, as soon as I send you the files, put it on your desktop, you're going to thank me later. This is just part of the process, why I'm a professional, giving you my services to make this as seamless as possible. Not just today, not just tomorrow. I don't disappear after the sale. I'm here with you for the long run. So anytime you need to reference back, you just have a file with my name and face on it. And then you know that when I come calling or you need to reach out to me for more real estate advice, you've got everything that we've talked about right together. And I promise to do the same. I'll have your files organized as well. So possession date, usually 30 to 90 days out. So now we just play the hurry up and wait game, waiting for you to get the keys to your new dream home. There may be a bank appraisal involved if the lender needs to get in. We will organize all this with the listing agent and the inspection too. This all happens in a timely manner and we coordinate all of this. No stress to you, okay? Now, things to consider during the meantime. Changing up and updating your addresses with all of your services. Mail forwarding, booking movers if you're thinking that you want to do that. This time is going to go quickly, especially if it's like 5 or 6 weeks until possession. I promise you, the time's going to fly by, especially if it's a busy time of year and you have kids. The time's going to go by quickly. So don't leave things to the last minute. All it's going to do is add to your stress levels. Take it from me. I do this all the time. Having a plan in place makes this so much easier. I have a plan for you. I'm actually going to send you documentation and reminders to do all of these things along the way. Okay. Change your mail, tell everybody that you're moving. Hey, let the neighborhood kids know that your full-size candy bars are not going to be handed out at that house anymore. So the new people have some high expectations from the neighborhood kids. You can leave them a nice little note when you leave them a letter with all of the nuances about your house. That's also a very nice touch that some sellers will do. They'll leave you a nice little note or package along the way so that if you have any questions about the house, it may be something that only they can answer. It's just a very, very nice touch. And if you are somebody who is selling before buying, I will encourage you to do that too. So again, I will never leave you in the dark wondering what's next. This is why I'm giving you my front to back home buying system. Okay. This exceeds expectations time and time again. This is why I am a top referral for any of our past clients. I encourage you to reach out to them. Go read my reviews on Google. And yes, I thank you so much for giving me the time. I'm Ty Mitchell, Tyler Mitchell Personal Real Estate Corporation, formerly brokered by Real Broker LLP. My website is tysellswpg.com. And I send out a great weekly newsletter that if you found value in this Home Buyers Masterclass, I really think that you're going to like the content that I'm putting out. In addition, I invite you to follow me on all the socials. I'm very active at TySellsWPG, Instagram at TySellsWPG, on YouTube at Ty Mitchell on Facebook, and TikTok TySellsWPG as well. So that's all the short form content that I'm putting out, as well as listing videos. All my listings live on the website, TySellsWPG.com. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we can start changing your family's wealth bloodline through real estate very soon. Be well.